Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Let's Align podcast. I'm your host, Ruhi, and I'm so thrilled to have you all here today. Through this podcast, I aim to have meaningful conversations that spark new perspectives, challenge the way we think, and help us grow into the best version of ourselves. Many of us feel like money is complicated, but the truth is, with the right mindset and strategies, anyone can take control of their finances. I'm especially excited to welcome our guest speaker today, Sophie White, who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our conversation. She has helped countless people take control of their finances and break free from common money myths. To tell a bit about Sophie, she is a Belgian born mom of three, photographer, businesswoman, and transformational coach in both life and finance. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to dive into the conversation today. But before we kickstart the conversation, I know I introduced a bit about you to our listeners, but we would definitely want to hear from you a bit more about you.
Sure. I am Sophie White and I am from Belgium. I am a mother and I am a financial professional, which I just released my book, The Mom's Blueprint to Generational Wealth. It's available on Amazon. And I love to help women and guide them so that they can help create generational wealth for their children. So that's one of the things I do. And I've also have a passion of helping women who have suffered being in toxic relationships. So I as well life coach women getting out of those relationships and empowering them to be able to have their greatest life.
Thank you so much. I think I would love to read the book that you have mentioned in the beginning of your introduction itself. So I'll definitely connect with you on that. So let's get started with the conversation. To begin with, what does financial empowerment truly mean? And how can someone start taking control of their financial future?
Okay, well, what financial empowerment means being educated on what is really available out there and what is really costing the regular people of everyday life. So, a lot of things that people are not aware of is that the banks, when you keep your money in the bank, you're actually losing money just by inflation, just by inflation alone. So, if you put your money in a savings account, which is something that I did, I put $10,000 in a savings account and I left it there for 10 years. It grew $200, but with inflation, I lost 360. So I really had less than what I started with. So that's what really got me inspired. And that's where I started venturing out, trying to learn more about money. And I started talking to my friends. And so a friend of mine had also decided to invest, but in the stock market instead. And she had put a little bit larger amount of money and for a little bit longer amount of time. So her growth was much larger. But the problem with the taxes is that when it rises and when it drops, they tax you on it. And so do most financial advisors. They get paid for on the rise and the drop. So I was like, ouch, like where can you really put your money safely? So that's when I got into the financial service segue, and I got in like dove deep, and I started learning a lot, and I started reading from many different authors because it was like really interesting. There was a lot of things to learn about insurance that a lot of people don't think about. And one of the things that I never put together was finance and life insurance. I didn't even I never even thought that they correlated. So once I realized that life insurance was actually the way that many people, such as like Disney World, were able to create their dreams safe in a safe vehicle where, they were able to grow their money at a much rapid pace. It was very safe and they were able to access it whenever they needed. That's when I started to really be like, okay, well, this is where I need to be. So that's a little bit about that.
Um, I heard you saying that about insurance. So, do you want to share your journey into finance? How did it happen, and what have been your learnings when it comes to the financial empowerment?
Well, my story is not a very common one. What happened to me was that I had an experience where a girl gave me a hug and she was wearing a patch that was poisonous with fentanyl, and because it was in Miami and we're in the middle of July, the sweat penetrated through my skin, and in 6 minutes I was flat, dead on the ground. And so, lucky for me, my husband was able to give me CPR, and the paramedics came, and he was able to see the signs of what had happened to me. So they were able to administer me Narcan, and I woke up like not knowing what happened to me. And so that was just like a real awakening moment in my life, because I was kind of like in a bad place at that moment. And so that's when this whole financial empowerment kind of like was like, wow, I don't have anything in place for my children. If I had died right today on July 29 on my garage floor, like they would have been, lost the house. They would have lost their mom, and they would have, also would have thought I was on drugs, which is horrible. So it was very important to me to start, making sure that I started taking more control of my finances, and like how I was going to control everything for their future, because at that time they were just still like 3 or 4 years old, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and your children are for your life. So I really was like, I need to start thinking about this. So obviously I had to go out and get a will, and get an estate plan for my house, so that my children would not lose the house in the case of something happening to me. But in that process, that I learned about life insurance policies, not just like term policies, which is what a lot of people think that life insurance is, that you just pay until you die. But there's vehicles where you can put your money in, and there are savings where they indexed your money into accounts, and they grow at a very rapid rate. And so when you get older, when you have all that money put together, and it has been compound interest over all the years of making payments for your life insurance, you're actually able to use it for retirement, and you're able to use it tax free. And if you don't want to use your money, or if you die before, then your family gets your money tax free. So I think that as far as when it comes to finances, it just covers a lot of the bases of feeling the safety, the security, the flexibility. And I think that that's very important for people to know about it, because I don't think that many people know about index universal life insurance policies, or life insurance policies as a vehicle for growing wealth. And because most wealthy people use it, but the day-to-day people don't, and it is available, and you're able to start really small, and you can build as you grow. So
Thanks for sharing your story. I know it must have been quite challenging for you back then, but I'm so glad I'm having this conversation with you, and it's so inspiring to hear from you. During that phase, if I may ask, uh, what is one thing that you unlearn over a period of time?
that
Yeah.
I unlearned to spend money frivolously. Like I used to, every time I would go to the store, like, buy little snacks here and there every single time. And I don't do that at all.
I think that's something even I have to get into the habit of. Um,
I don't do that at all, because
so,
those little amounts add
mhm,
up to put away savings.
absolutely. Yeah, we don't even have control over it, and they just add up to the larger amount.
But
Um,
anything that comes from plastic isn't good for you, so you shouldn't have it anyways.
that's right. What are some of the common limiting beliefs about money that you think people hold?
I think that one of the biggest problems is that people think that when it comes to savings, that they always have time. And the biggest myth is that, when they're in their 20s, that if, that they'll either get it through their corporate job, or that, when they're in the 30s, they'll have a better job, and they'll be able to put more away. But the problem is that the older you get, the more bills you have, the more you squeeze it. And I think that if people right out of college, or right as they leave their house, start that savings, like it could save their lives in so many ways, because that money in those policies doesn't only have to be used for retirement. It could be used for your child's education. It could be used for buying a house, for investment properties. So
Yeah.
it has many different ways depending on how you want to build it. And they actually offer these policies for infants, so parents can get them for their children and be saving in their entire life. And when they go to college, they won't have college debt.
I think that's a very good tip that you have shared. So, how do you think people can shift from scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset?
I think that they just need to become more knowledgeable. I mean, well, if they're here right now, they just learned it, so that would be amazing. So that they just need to, access information so that it could benefit them. I mean, knowledge is power, and we all know that. So if you know about it, like I was intrigued because I was like, okay, how are people making money in a savings account? And then I lose all this money. I was like, this doesn't make sense. So, and I'm thinking at a greater scale, like, okay, my $10,000, but what if that was 100,000, or what if that was somebody's million, and that's their savings. And then, it's less than what they started with. That's not what savings are supposed to be for. Savings are supposed to grow, at least that's what we're hoping for. So, so therefore, like that's what got me like intrigued. And then what I learned through my growth of knowledge was that the banks take everybody's savings and they put it in life insurance policies, and they grow your money and then at a high rate, and then they give it to you at a 1% interest on your savings account in their banks, while they're getting your money the 12%.
Seems like you're spilling all the beans. Okay, and you say that it's all about the awareness that people need to have when it comes to the financial empowerment.
And
In
just
today's, Mhm.
to believe it, that they deserve it, like why is it just for the wealthy, it's for everybody.
Yeah. So do you think that in today's digital time, uh, everyone has access to the financial empowerment?
But yes, if not, they can definitely, contact somebody. You have to be a licensed agent to get a policy. But if your licensed agent is fiduciary, their job is to make sure that it's in the best interest of you. So because some financial advisors, they get a percentage whether you win or lose, and others do it fiduciary. So that's just something that's very important, because you want to make sure that whoever you're working with cares about your success, over, their own financial growth. So that's just something that I think is important. Just make sure that whoever you're working with really,
Mm-hmm.
is cares about your future, cares about that, what they're doing to help you
Yeah,
is your best benefit.
absolutely. So can you suggest some at least 2 to 3 essential financial habits that everyone should develop over a period of time?
Yes. Start saving. Whether you start saving only $20 a week, because it's just like you're very budgeted to the last dollar. If you start at $20 a week and then you start seeing that growth, then you can move it up a little by little. So start little, but start. And definitely always go back yearly and check what's happening in your accounts. If they're investment accounts or life insurance policy accounts, because they don't consider life insurance policy accounts investments. Otherwise, they wouldn't be tax free.
So I definitely get the message that start small, even if it's $10 or $20.
Yes.
The key here is to get started, and over a period of time, you wouldn't even realize how much you have started investing in.
But
For
how to,
someone, yeah, for someone who is new to investing, what's the simplest and the safest way to get started?
well, to speak to a financial advisor, definitely. Because like the thing is that like what I do is that every single person I speak to, every situation is super different. I work with directly with 30 different providers. So when I find out what a family situation is or an individual situation is, I'm going to look at the provider that's going to be the most beneficial for you. And with the experience, I have an idea of which ones I can use and which ones I can't use, depending, because a lot of people have health issues, and that's the downside of
Yeah.
the life insurance policy, is that if you're not healthy, it can't really get approved all the time, or sometimes it's for a higher rate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason why you want to start when you're young, because you're usually a lot healthier.
All right. And many people struggle with financial setbacks. How can they bounce back and rebuild their confidence when it comes to their finances?
It's just never too late. It's just never too late. That's the thing, is that like that happens to tons of people, that they lose everything. but you just can't give up, and you just, if you have a setback, it's a setback. It's not the end. Like, you just keep moving forward, because the more positive you are, the better things happen in your life anyway. So, yeah, that's definitely what I suggest.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important what you called out just now. I understand when it comes to finances, there is a myth that it's only for the adults and grown-ups. What do you think? How can parents teach their children some of the financial lessons?
Well, I do webinars online for kids, teaching them how to budget, but there's tons of apps. There's tons of apps that are amazing. I use with my kids, it's called the Greenlight app, and in that app I'm able to assign them little chores so that they learn the power of working, and it's very small things, and they can get a weekly budget of $10. And if they accomplish everything, they get the $10 at the end of the week. In that app, they're able to choose whether they want to invest it into a stock, whether they want to put it in a savings account, whether they want to donate it to a good cause, or whether they want to spend it. So it's very good for the kids to learn that, because they have access. Obviously, they don't have access to life insurance in the app, but it teaches them the power of saving. And my one son, I think that he invested only $15 and it grew to 80, and the other one invested the same $15 and only got 35. So that shows you that, like, the stock is tricky because it just depends on what you choose also. So you have to be very knowledgeable in stocks to be able to trade them properly.
So I think you're making finance lessons quite fun for your kids
Yes.
by introducing them to some uh, gamification that you spoke just now, where they are actually learning how to invest and the returns that they are getting through those apps. Can you also share some of similar apps for our listeners out here if someone wants to get started for their kids?
Well, there's tons of them. Let me see. I can just look them up, but and then for adults, like, there's ones like Rocketmonkey where it'll check like your subscriptions to make sure that
Hmm.
you still want them. And those, I think, are great too, just to keep on top of everything, because in day-to-day life, especially that I work in business, things, just end up on subscriptions all the time. And you have to, like, monitor them. So that's another very important thing, is, monitoring your accounts. But let me just pull up some other ones, because the Greenlight is the one that I use, but there's so many that are just super for families to choose from.
Sure.
Yeah, GoHenry, Greenlight, Till, Monzo, Kids Bank, Bank and Budget, even
I think
Chase.
I'll definitely mention these apps that you have spoken just now in the description of this episode.
Oh, and Acorn. Acorn's a good one too.
All right, sure, I'll do that. Now let's move on to something different. Now we also have entrepreneurs and salaried professionals. What do
Yes.
you think, or rather, how does financial empowerment differ for entrepreneurs and salaried professionals?
Okay, so in the case of entrepreneurs and salary professionals, which I would say corporate work, usually they get a 401k, and when you are an entrepreneur, you get a Roth IRA. The thing with those both accounts are they're great. They were meant for retirement, correct? I
Hmm.
don't know if you guys get those in India. Do you?
No,
No. Okay. Well,
no.
in the United States, they do.
Okay.
And so the thing with both of those is that they are tied to the stock market. So when the stock goes down, your
Hmm.
savings goes down. And also, if you try to access your money before you're 59 and a half, you get taxed 10% penalty. Otherwise, you
Okay.
have to wait till you're 59 and a half. And if you don't take it out before you're 72, they take away 50%. But at the end, when you're at that age group, when you're in your 65, 70, you're at a higher tax bracket. So if you have $1 million and you're in the 50 to 60% tax bracket, you only end up with $400,000.
Okay.
when you're
That's
an entrepreneur,
quite interesting.
IRS only allows you to put away $7,000 a year.
Hmm.
So that's not a lot of money to be able to put away. So you have a very limited budget. You need to have several different accounts for that.
Okay. So how did your journey start into this? I know we spoke about it in the beginning, but during your time, what was the first step you took uh, to invest, if I may ask?
Well, it was prior to becoming licensed that I made a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after my experience that I told you after the death experience, I had originally set out to change my career from entrepreneur. I owned a soap company and a cleaning company. I was very, very into being an entrepreneur, but I
Mm-hmm.
needed a new direction. And so at first I thought it was real estate, and I had gotten into real estate, and I had to take the class twice because I hadn't been in school in a long time. I had to take the test 4 times, and then I didn't like it. I didn't really like real estate. It didn't align with who I am. I live here in Miami. It's very competitive, and so it's very cutthroat. People just kind of stab each other in the back, and that's just not wasn't. It's just not who I am. So as I was in the journey of becoming a real estate, my realtor mentor had mentioned to me like how it would be awesome to be able to protect families with wills and trusts. And so that really got my attention because I had just had that experience the year before. So I was like, okay, I I should do this. Like I would love to help people protect themselves, and so that way they can't lose their houses and they can leave their family members what they want. So I took the course. I passed right away, and it just like really drew to me because of what had happened to me, that it's like any day I can drop, you can drop, my husband can drop. Any day something can happen from us. But the financial burden that's left behind and the families that have to raise GoFundMe's or, like take out this life savings just to bury a family member, it's just heartbreaking. And here in Miami, I mean, there's a lot of death every day. So it's really in your face. And so it's just constant reminder that like I want to be able to help people protect themselves. Like it's important to protect your children, to protect your family. Like you don't want to leave them grieving and in financial burden. And if anything, leaving them a blessing of, a large policy so that they can grieve, and enjoy themselves would be ideal.
I
I mean,
think,
at
yeah,
least children, that's what I want for them.
yeah, I think having a foresight about the future, for the unexpected events that may happen in our lives, so definitely that helps. Um, You spoke about the lessons that you have learned during that period and how you overcame all the challenges. You also said that before you got your license, there were a lot of mistakes that happened. Uh, do you want to share one mistake that had really made the transition in your life?
Yes. So when I sold the cleaning company, I sold the van. I had a van. I sold it for $5,000, and I put it in the stocks. Right. My husband loves stocks, and he's very knowledgeable about it, so he can do it. And I could try to mimic him, but it doesn't work the same way. So it's a heart attack. Being involved in the stress in the stocks is so stressful, and that's something that I don't enjoy. So you're there and you're like, he does the day trading. So you put $200 in this account, and then it's like, if it reaches 104, you buy this much. And if it doesn't, don't buy. And then you're like 103, 103, 103.9. And then you're like, do I buy? And you're like, it's so close. And you buy like like not even a cent away. And then you lose all your money all of a sudden. It just drops because you didn't wait for it to be the 1 point. It's very complicated. So yeah, so I had left a lot of the money in there, even though I lost a ton of it. I was like, let me just leave it. It'll eventually come back. So one of the ones that I invested, I guess like 500, it divided into five and then divided into three and then divided into two. So that 500 became $200, and it'll never grow into anything. So it was very
Yeah.
sad. I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna make some money. And I lost pretty much all of it. I think there's like $900 there or something.
That's quite an amount.
Yeah, I'll never do that again.
Um, yeah, I think we actually learn from our mistakes, and definitely in the upcoming time, we make sure that we don't repeat what happened in the past and move forward. So, if I
Well, I
may
hope
ask you,
my story shared will
hmm
save people from making that mistake. That's what I hope
yeah,
for.
yeah. So, if I may ask you, what's the best piece of financial advice you have ever received?
Well, not like just to start saving and not stop. Like in the proper way. Like I save my all of my money in my
Mm-hmm.
policies, and I have a policy for all of my children and myself. And so if something happens to me, I have, one policy for my adult child and my stepson, and then I have another one that
Mm-hmm.
my adult child will use to administer to take care of the smaller children. And then all of my children have a policy. I mean, if something were to happen to them, I don't think that money would ever help that. But you know, I'd want to be able to leave a legacy for them. So
Yeah, it's all about the planning for future.
yeah, and it's something that like, nobody in the family, I mean my husband knows, but like it's not their father, and so their father doesn't know anything about it or anything, but I have it all planned out so that everything will go according to how I would like for it to happen.
Nice. If you could give one actionable tip to our listeners to become financially empowered today, what would it be?
Well, to start saving, yeah, and reach out to somebody that can help you to guide you, and like I
Mm-hmm.
said, just make sure that they are fiduciary so that they have your best interest, because like I said, not every financial planner and advisor is going to have your best interest. So that's just the most important thing to find out, that they are fiduciary.
Yeah. So the key here is to start investing, even if it's very small, and to find someone who is actually invested in your growth, invested in your future.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, I remember you also said that you were a photographer. I'm assuming that you're still into the photography.
Well, yeah, it's just more of my passion. So it's just a hobby, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I shared with you that I do for fun. And so my son is now about to go into photography magnet. So I've been able to like use my photography a lot more. So we go out and we practice together, and
Mm-hmm.
that's been a lot of fun. But in 25 years or so, I'll definitely put on a show once I have all of my work together.
Absolutely. I look forward to take a look at it as well. Um, for our listeners, where can they learn more about you and your work?
Okay, so yes, I have many different social medias. So I have Balance Bees, and the other one is called Whispering Wise Wealth. I have
Mm-hmm.
it the website.com. You can go on Instagram, Whispering Wise Wealth, Facebook, Whispering Wise Wealth, TikTok, Whispering, all of it. So that's how you find me. Whispering Wise Wealth.
Yeah, I'll add all those details in the description for our listeners. And that's the wrap for today's episode. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the discussion as much I did and learned so much from you. Uh, Thank you so much, Sophie, for your valuable insights and practical advice on financial empowerment. I'm pretty sure our listeners would definitely gain a lot of knowledge from this discussion, and I strongly feel this was an empowering discussion. And for our listeners, if you really enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to this podcast, leave your review, and definitely share it with your friends and family. Sophie, once again, thank you so much for being on my show today, and I look forward to have conversation with you one more time.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I really had a good time talking to you.
Thank you. And everyone else, until next time, take very good care of yourself and stay inspired. Bye bye.
Bye bye.